Hello, my name is Laura Lawrence. My presentation is based on information on religion and culture found in Chapter 8 of our textbook. This chapter shows how religion and cultural background has shaped American public and how religion strongly shapes one's beliefs and actions. It's important as educators for us to know the impacts that religion has on students' cultural backgrounds. It will provide educators with an opportunity to create a learning of environment that is best for our students. Religious pluralism of a school in which one teaches is determined in part by the school's geographic region in the United States. A vast majority of Americans indicate that their religious beliefs are important to them, and over half of Americans attend a weekly religious service. As one visits various schools across the United States, distinct patterns are apparent. In some regions, schools are greatly influenced by religious groups in the community. In these communities, the members of the school board, the appointment of the school administration, leadership roles, and curriculum may be shaped by the dominant religious group. In other regions, religion may have little or if any effect on the school. The First Amendment and the segregation of church and state has significantly shaped our country's laws. Our nation founded fathers set in place laws that protect freedom of religion without government interference and segregation of church and state. These principles have often been challenged by individuals and by religious groups. However, the courts have held firm to the basic principles set forth in the First Amendment to the Constitution. One of the most valued parts of our Constitution, this provision is probably the most controversial. Since the removal of prayer in school, in 1963, the Supreme Court decision, religious groups have continued to fight to restore prayer in schools through state and federal regulation. Parent groups have often fought on religious grounds to prevent the teaching of sex education and evolution. Community resistance to cultural pluralism and multicultural education has at times been led by individual associations with controversial religious groups. Because cultural pluralism inevitably involves religion diversity, multicultural education is sometimes viewed as an impediment to the efforts to maintain the status quo or to return to the religious values of the past. Multicultural education, however, provides a basis for understanding and appreciating its diversity and minimizes the problems related to people being different from one another. Many Americans have taken for granted their religious liberties and the joys of being able to have religious choices and to be able to worship when they choose to. Other areas across the world are faced with restriction policies by their government, and they're rejected socially by other fellow citizens. It is important for us to remember that religion is clearly an important aspect of the lives of many people. Although it may have little impact on some, it influences ways many people think, perceive, and behave. Religious groups can influence the election of school board members as well as curriculum and textbook that's used within our schools. Principals, teachers, and superintendents have been hired and fired due to the influences of these groups. Also, while religion differences often cause frustration and animosity in schools and societies, those who live in a country such as the United States often take this for granted. Students should be taught that many in the world do not enjoy the religious freedoms that we do and the liberties that we have. And we need to make sure that we teach our children to observe, to make sure that unconstitutional restrictions and rulings are not imposed on our freedoms. Different religion is everywhere. While a large majority of the United States population identifies themselves as Christians, the country continues to experience considerable religion pluralism. Religion pluralism in our past has often been led to conflict, and the hope of a future is that we will lead to a better understanding and respect for those different types of religion. Experiences and values in churches, synagogues, and temples are often transferred into everyday life. As educators, we must be careful that restrictions with gender practices in religion setting and negative attitudes towards gays and lesbians and towards other racial groups are not carried into the school practices or behaviors by students and educators. In the era of gender equality in the general society of the United States, issues of gender equality are often raised in religious institutions. In many of these more controversial religious bodies, the role of women has been clearly defined and limited. It is important for educators to be aware that many in our society's attitudes toward gender may be rooted within religious practices. Female students at an early age should be encouraged and given opportunities to develop leadership skills. This will enable them to pursue their future careers and personal choices and enable them to maximize themselves for their full potential. Also, gays and lesbian issues have become among the most controversial dilemma facing religion instructions today. Attacks on gays and lesbians in the religion context are often justified through biblical interpretation or from other religious writings. The textbook states that educators have a right to their personal views towards homosexuality. They do not have the right to impose these views to the public school setting. They cannot allow children to be harassed or bullied one another. They cannot allow students to voice their personal opinions and attack other students verbally or otherwise in the classroom or on school grounds. It is our responsibility as educators, including staff members, to provide a safe and acceptable environment for all of our students. Last but not least, race and religion and race. In the United States, as in many other countries, religion has been a profound impact on race and ethnical diversity issues. Differences in interpretation of religion materials have caused racial discrimination. Just like stated earlier in the slide, we as educators have to be aware of the differences between race and religion in order to provide a safe learning environment for our students. Over the past several years, religion groups, school board members, and other parent groups have been persistent in the attempts to circumvent laws and principles related to the segregation of church and state. Groups have continued to advocate for religion to be included and excluded within the school walls. However, these rulings continue to be challenged. School prayer, for example, continues to receive a majority of 61% of American public believes that it should be included. What is at an issue for the courts is whether the public favors school prayer, but whether it is constitutionally valid. The law is in no way prohibits private prayer in school. The Supreme Court's decisions do not prevent teachers or students from praying privately in their school. Many schools use a moment of silence to allow students and teachers to take an opportunity to express their religious beliefs silently during this moment. Also, school vouchers. It tends to be a very controversial issue. This money is founded through the public taxpayers, and there are people that are that's for it and against it. The ones that are sending their kids to private schools like to have those funds. They feel like the public schools have inadequately taught their children. Supporters of the voucher programs believes that it will enable the school systems to ensure that the quality education that all parents wish for their children. The opponents maintain that the vouchers will indeed take away the funding from the public schools. So that's a very controversial issue when it comes to education vouchers. Censorship is also important to understand. It occurs when the expression materials such as books, magazines, films, videos, and other works are removed from the public schools. The target of censors are books and materials that are identified as being disrespectful of authority, religion, destructive to social and cultural values, unpatriotic, or violent to individuals, families, and rights. Last but not least, the classroom implementations on this chapter are numerous. Educators, like many of their students, come from different religious backgrounds, and many have different values in relation to the importance of the religion or what they believe. As educators, we have to ensure that we are reviewing our curriculum and not discriminating against any group of individuals. We must provide a safe environment for learning, and the only way that we can do this is to educate ourselves about the differences among our students. The Constitution of the United States guarantees religious freedoms, and most of our leaders impose a culture of religion, tolerance, and acceptance. If we are to make it a reality, it must begin in our schools as well as in our homes. Thank you.